So you want to hear a story? I got one for you. May 2001, Union, Missouri. A single father of three, Stephen LaChance, needs a new place to live. He looks at a bunch of places, none that'll work for him, but finally gets a call from a woman stating she has a large old house in perfect shape for rent. She invites him to an open house the following Sunday, and he shows up. He's shocked by the size of the house, especially considering how little the rent is. Up until now, he had been living in a small apartment with his three children. This place is not perfect, but it is a beautiful home with original woodwork intact, with hand-carved cherubs lining the walls of the living room, large wooden columns separating the living room from the family room. It's a 2-story home with 3 bedrooms and a large kitchen. It's just what he needs. At this open house, a lot of people showed up, but Stephen felt he had to have it. The owner, she seemed pretty strange, and she didn't show the house like a realtor would. She showed the house more like a tour guide at a museum. But okay, what are you gonna do? Sometimes people are just weird. Welcome to Now It's Dark. When he turned in his application, she asked him, "You do understand the responsibility of living in an old house like this?" He said he did, of course he did. And she said she'd get back to him. He had no idea what she was talking about. It was about a week later when he got a call from the homeowner. She was excited to let him know that she had chosen him of all the people that applied. They met the following day and took care of the paperwork, the money, all that. And the following weekend, Memorial Day, he and his children moved in. Now, as he was getting the last few items from the moving truck, a car slowed nearly to a stop, and the passenger said, "Hope you get along okay here." And then the car sped off. At the time, he just thought they had a weird way of saying welcome to the neighborhood. His first night was uneventful, nothing happened. And the following morning, he noticed something he thought was a little weird, but not really a big deal. Each of the interior doors were fitted with those old-fashioned hook and eye latch type locks, but they were on the outside of the doors. A little weird. The first thing that happened was not very scary, not supernatural. It was a bit annoying, but that's all. He was hanging a picture. His daughter had picked a picture out for him to hang above the fireplace. It was a painting of 2 angels. He got it up on the wall and was quite proud of himself. And as he turned to walk away, he heard it hit the floor. He wasn't sure what happened. He just hung it again and once again admired his work. Turned to walk away, heard it hit the floor again. So this happened a third time. So he checked the picture frame. He looked at the wall. He didn't see anything wrong, any reason for it to fall down. And so he put it up for the 4th time. And this time he was still looking at the picture with his hand on the frame when he said, "Now stay there, damn it." He started to laugh, wondering who it was he was talking to. His kids were playing on the front porch at the time when his daughter called out to him saying, "Hey Dad, come look at this." An old man walking down the sidewalk toward the house crossed the street as he reached the property line. Over the next few hours, everyone who walked by crossed the street like they didn't want anything to do with getting anywhere near the house. He waved and said hi, but they just dropped their heads and kept right on walking. Weird, again, but nothing too crazy. On Sunday, they decided to take care of the yard. They mowed the lawn, raked leaves, and made plans for planting flowers. He asked his youngest son to get the hose from the basement so that they could wash down the walkways. After a few minutes, he heard his son screaming from inside the house. His son was standing in the kitchen. He was shaking, and he had an accident. He said something had chased him up the basement stairs. Of course, Dad asked what it was, and he said he didn't know, but it was big. Dad checked the basement, of course, but the only thing he found was the hose where his son had dropped it, and he just thought this is an old house, and with the recent divorce, his kids were just a bit on edge and experiencing a little anxiety, and so he didn't really think much more of it. The rest of Sunday and Monday, nothing out of the ordinary happened. It was a good couple of days. Stephen would actually say they were all very happy in those first few days in the home. It was a normal, happy time. Unfortunately, it didn't last. Monday of the kids' last week of school, when they all got home together, Dad from work, the kids from school, they found every light in the house on. He thought the kids just forgot and told them to remember, turn the lights off when we go out. When we leave the house in the morning, just make sure the lights are turned out. Tuesday, when they got home, all the lights were on again. And again, he reminded them to make sure that the lights were off when they left for school, and they said they actually had done that. Wednesday and Thursday, same thing. So on Friday, Stephen and his daughter went room to room, making sure all the lights were turned off, and then they went ahead about their day. When they came home, every light in the house was lit. Now, Stephen knew they were off when they left the house that morning, and he wondered if maybe someone could be in the house. Maybe the landlady came by, maybe someone had a key and they had to check on something. He checked the whole house. He didn't find any evidence that anyone had come in. About a week later, his daughter called out to him from the living room, asking why the house was so cold. He was confused. He was literally sweating just a room away, so he went to check on his daughter, hoping she wasn't coming down with something. And as he stepped into the living room where she was, he said it felt like the temperature dropped 30 degrees. He said this is the first time he's ever felt its presence. Now, I don't know what its is, but I guess we're going to find out. He said it felt like an electric current running through his body, bringing tears to his eyes and goosebumps to his arms. Okay. A few days later, his daughter said the opposite. Dad, it's getting warm in here now. He felt it too, and when he checked the thermostat, he saw the temperature was 80 degrees and rising. He could literally see the thermostat going up. A few days later, on a Sunday night, he was discussing the next few days' plans with his kids. He would be going out of town for work, and the kids would be going to Grandma's to spend a few days. They were in the family room. The kids had their backs to the living room when he thought he saw something out of the corner of his eye in the living room. He saw someone moving by the doorway. It was the dark figure of a man, even though the room was well lit. The man was solid, but there was a moving, dark, gray-black smoke that made up his form. All right, we're getting a little weirder now. Sure, his eyes were playing tricks on him. He looked away, closed his eyes for a few seconds, and sure, it would now be gone. He looked again. The figure was standing there, staring at him, and then he began to move. The figure moved slowly through the family room, pausing occasionally, and then just melted away into the air. Stephen stayed calm for his kids, but knew they had to go. He said, "Hey, let's go see Grandma." His youngest was excited. The other two looked at him like he was crazy. This is not something normal, but okay, we'll go see Grandma. They exited the house, and while he was locking the door, he heard a loud, painful scream from inside the house. It sounded like a scream of pain and was so loud the neighborhood dogs began barking and howling. As they drove away, his youngest son said, "Dad, look, the basement monster is standing at the upstairs window." He looked and saw the figure at the window as if watching them leave. They went to Grandma's house. The next morning, he left for his business trip. Over the course of that week, he convinced himself there was nothing to worry about. He rationalized everything that had happened so far. Moved into an old house, just had a divorce, a lot of emotions, a lot of anxiety. And so he decided everything's good. He picked up the kids and headed back to the house. That weekend went by without incident. The following Saturday, they explored the shed at the back of the property. They found personal belongings from several people. He decided it was time to call the landlady and ask a few questions. He said it was the strangest, most awkward phone call of his life. He asked if any of the other tenants ever mentioned a ghost. She said, "Well, I don't really remember," but she told him one tenant said that her dead father had come to visit her, but that she had always thought the tenant was crazy. She also said that the tenant left some things behind in the shed, but that she could never get her to come back to pick them up. There were other items in the shed that belonged to a man who had rented the house but left in the middle of the night, leaving his things behind. But no, she said, she had never heard anything about the house being haunted. Okay. One night, while on the phone with his mom, he heard the doorknobs rattling and told the kids to knock it off, stop messing around. The doorknobs rattled again, louder this time, and so he did what parents do. He got louder and told them again to knock it off. And they rattled again, even louder this time. And as he turned to, let them know they needed to knock it off, his daughter was coming in and said she was in the living room reading. Her brothers were asleep in their room, and none of them are messing with the doorknob. He says he's not really clear what happened next. It's sort of a blur, and some of it is not clear in any way in his memory. As his daughter spoke, he felt the temperature drop by what felt like 30 degrees. He got that same electrical charge through his body he had when he first felt its presence, doing the air quotes now, its presence, and a horrible stench filled the house. Then the screaming started. Softly at first, but getting louder and louder. He told his mom they were leaving and asked her to meet them down the road. At this point, the whole house began to shake. He could hear what sounded like very loud footsteps coming down the stairs toward them. He could hear the man screaming over and over. Boom, 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 echoing through the house with the screaming of this man. His daughter started crying and screaming, asking, "Daddy, what's happening?" He grabbed his daughter and he headed toward his son's room. The floor began shaking as he approached their door. He felt something behind him, but he didn't turn around. The screams of a child joined the screams of the man. He got to the bedroom door, but it wouldn't open. He threw himself against the door until it finally did, and he told his sons to go outside together. His daughter, at this point, was frozen in fear and wouldn't move. The screaming continued. The floor kept shaking. The booming continued as well. He finally got his daughter to respond, and they ran toward the front door. He felt there was something right behind them, something big, and his only focus at that point was getting out of the house. They drove down the road a little bit, and he stopped where he still had a good view of the house. Him and his kids could all see a figure moving through the house from window to window as if it was looking for them. This was the last night they stayed in the house. He made several trips back to collect their things, and everyone who went with him witnessed something. Loud noises, whispers, screaming, doorknobs rattling, doors slamming, cupboards opening and closing. He said when he turned in the keys to the landlady, she said something strange. She said, "Some people are meant to live in an old house like that, and some people aren't. I never thought you were the old house type." Okay. About a year later, in the middle of the night, a police car responded to a call from the house. When they arrived, they saw the front door wide open and the family, dressed for bed, running from the house. In fact, the three families that moved in after Stephen all moved out unexpectedly, all saying there was something wrong with that house. After that, the owner turned the home into a dog kennel. Apparently, she could not get people to stay there anymore. Now, Stephen said he occasionally passes by the house, and every time he does, he sees that figure standing at the upstairs window. He still has trouble sleeping and says that he has nightmares of a faceless man standing in the basement of that home, watching blood from his blood-covered body, grunting, panting, breathing. The same breathing he heard when he was in the room with the figure, when he knew he was there. Heavy, labored breathing. So what do you think happened? Was this just a hoax? Was it another Amityville horror type story? Maybe Stephen was just looking to cash in? He did write a book about it, but there's always a book. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe. It don't cost you nothing. And thanks for watching Now It's Dark.